Hello and welcome to hobby vlog number 117. This week has been busy as they always are, but I felt like I've actually got quite a lot done, which is unusual for me standing here when I'm just about to edit the vlog, because normally I think like I've not done very much. But I have really enjoyed my hobby in this week. I felt really a lot of fun. I've learned a lot, I've tried some new techniques, and you're going to see all about that in the coming video. The one thing that hasn't gone well is the Battle Games Middle-earth build, which is supposedly going to be coming out in the Tuesday in 2 days. I can tell you what, it's not happening. I really run out of motivation on it. I'm really struggling with it. And it is what's given basically this month with all the sickness, with Rosie being sick and myself being sick, and Angela as well. So yeah, that's just not going to happen. So if you're looking forward to that video, huge apologies. I haven't finished it. I've not even got halfway through. I think I'm going to take a break from Battle Games Middle-earth releases in February, so I won't do any, and I'll just put that out on the first Tuesday of March, and I'll focus on getting that done. So yeah, just wanted to say that right up front. But other than that, and that is a bit of a disappointment, but other than that, it's been a really good week, and I really hope you enjoy the video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I reply to every single one of them, and I really appreciate them. They really motivate me, and they give me a lot of joy to read. So yeah, do say hi and pop them in the comments below. But other than that, please enjoy the video, and I'll see you again at the end. Now I need to start doing the finishing touches. And what I've got here is I've got my burnt umber. Is it burnt umber? Raw umber. I always forget. Raw umber from Winsor & Newton. And I'm going to paint that on the door. It's going to make it a nice dark brown wood, which is what I think it would be. And also the door goes up to the edge. So once I've painted this, and it may take a couple of coats to get a good solid covering, what I'm going to need to do is think about what colour I'm going to do for the stonework, the dressed stonework, which is the window frames basically. And once I've done that, then I've got a really cool idea to try out for doing cheap, simple stained glass in a building like this, which I'm quite excited to try. I've been planning it for, well, as long as since I built this building, which was about 2 years ago. So I've been planning this for years, but never got around to it. So yeah, I'm going to give that a try. So I'm going to have a think about the colours for the woodwork, for the stonework, and I'll come back when I've worked that out. But there we are. We've painted the door nice and brown. So yeah, let that dry, and then I'll come back and do the stonework. So I've had a thought, and I'm going to paint it with this pearlescent paint. I think it'll be quite nice. This is another thing that I bought when I was in Belgium. And I think this is the first time I've ever used this paint. I bought it, I don't want to think how many years ago. 4, 5, been that long. But anyway, it's going to give a quite a nice effect. So I won't film all of it because it's going to be very much the same. But what I'm going to be doing is coming around all of these little borders here. So all the cardboard borders around the windows, and also painting all the actual wood parts that are currently exposed. Now it's probably going to take a couple of coats. This is not very good quality paint. It's designed for real painters, so it's not designed to have a huge amount of colour to it. So it might take a couple of coats, but I think that pearlescent will look really, really nice in the effect. So I'm going to sit down, spend a bit of time doing this, and I'll come bring you back, tell you how many coats it's taken when I've got it done. So what I've actually ended up doing, because the original paint just wasn't really giving me the effect I wanted, is I've gone with white house paint, and it's working really nicely. I'm very, very pleased with the effect. I'm going to do another coat, and then that stage will be done, and then I'll be able to work on the windows on putting some basic stained glass in. Still undecided on the internals. I might be able to leave it for a bit. The reason I need to get this finished is I want it as a backdrop to my encounter terrain entry. So if I can just get the outside done, the exterior done enough for that photo shoot, then I'll be happy. So probably the next thing I'll do is I'm going to have to actually paint the these gravestones and memorials and what have you. So that'll probably be the next thing I do. But another coat of white house paint, and it's going to rock and roll. I'm really pleased with how that's looking. Well, that white paint has really done the job. I'm very pleased. It's much better. The pearlescent was cool. It'll work for something, but it just didn't work for this. And that's part of experimenting, isn't it? So the next thing is also going to be an experiment. What I've got is these sweet wrappers from what we would have called boiled sweets when I was younger. And I'm going to try to make use of these. And I'm not going to try and do anything particularly fancy because, well, I don't want to. I want this to be quite plain. To basically stick one colour behind, like for example the circle, another colour behind the main windows, or maybe a colour on each side. And yeah, just make some very basic stained glass. So I have super glue and I have my scissors. And what I'm going to do is going to take a piece which is relatively flat, like this pink is going to be the first piece. And I'm going to do the bottom of this as pink and the top of this as red, I think. So what I'll do is I will roughly measure and then cut, bearing in mind I'm going to be gluing this on the inside. So cut a strip like that. There we go. So we've got a strip of the paper, of the see-through material, and then that can be glued on the inside with super glue and it will look really nice. So I will now cut the length. Not being very scientific about this, hopefully it will work. Probably when I'm off camera I'll be a little bit more scientific, do a bit more measuring. It's a bit hard when you're trying to film sometimes to be as accurate as you normally would be. But yeah, that's going to work well. So what I'll do is I'm going to put a little bit of super glue on the bottom inside. So let's do that. There you go. And with that done, I'm going to very carefully put this in and press it down and hopefully get it right first time. If I don't get it right first time, it's not going to be very easy to readjust. This is where being a big clumsy oaf like I am really doesn't help either. Might make it a bit easier to lift it a bit. I've got super glue on my fingers. Ack! You see, this is proof that being clumsy shouldn't stop you trying things. Because I really am clumsy sometimes. More than sometimes. Almost always clumsy. Right, I'm going to need to do this off camera, get the technique nailed, and I'll come back and film it when I know what I'm doing. Well, today has been a pretty difficult day, pretty rubbish, not been feeling very well at all. Rosie's been very sick. It's just a cold, we think. But yeah, been tough. Tough with work, and felt like I haven't really achieved very much. So this evening, I've sat down and I've worked on my dad's plane, and that's always going to put a smile on my face. So I've assembled two halves of the fuselage and the two rear tailplanes. I've also assembled this little box. And I've assembled the other side. I did the first one the other day, then I've assembled that. So I'm going to finish now because it's now getting late and I need to get to sleep so I can try and work tomorrow. But that's a really nice little bit of progress. I think actually this is going to pause very slightly. I've purchased the correct paints to paint the whole miniature. The exterior, but what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to paint the cockpit, because the next step involves locking it in, and it's going to be a bit difficult to paint, I think, when it's in the cockpit. Now I might change my mind when I look at it. I might find it's okay, but I do think that might end up being a little bit tight. So what I might do is paint the cockpit, get the cockpit completely finished and painted before I put it inside the plane. I will be doing this with wheels down, and you will be able to see in the cockpit. It will be probably will be mounted, and so I can hang it on the wall. That's what I'm thinking. I'll put it on I'll put it on a little dioramic base that I can then put a hook on, similar to what I did with the Voyager, and I can have that hung up in here and look at it all the time. So you will be able to see inside, so I'm keen to make sure that that looks good. So yeah, so that's might be what I'll come to next, but it's been really nice to get a little bit of time into this. As I say, bit of a smile on my face after a tough day, and it's good to be making some progress. I'm really enjoying the build. It is tough though, it's not very good instructions. The pictures are not very good, it's not very clear, it's not an easy kit to make, but I'm going to get there. I'm determined to do it. I'm not going to give up. Here we have on my very dirty cutting mat, clean, washed and dried for ages ago actually, for the King. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this together pretty much in the same way as I did the other chariots. So I will stick the foot model onto a base, I will glue the chariot together, I will glue the horses together, and I will also put the rider on a separate stick, and I'll paint all of them separately and then assemble at the end. So it's pretty much the same, I believe, as we had for the main chariots. The only big difference is where these flags go. So when I've worked that out, I will bring you along and show you how that goes. But everything else is pretty much the same. We've got the horses are going to have their back legs put on and their front legs put on. So they're going to match up very much, obviously, like this. It's not going to be very hard to do that. And then there'll probably be a little bit of filling to be done. Most of it I'll do off camera, like I say. The only thing I'm going to do is work out where these flags go and then let you know, show you that. And when they're done, I'll prime them with my standard grey, and then they're going to be painted up in my 20 minutes. I'm very excited because I get this project finished quickly at this stage, if I can crack on. So yeah, I'm going to finish this off, get this done, and then I'll bring you along, as I say, when I've finished gluing it all, so you can see exactly what it looks like in each of the component parts. I've glued all these parts together. They went together very nicely actually, so I'm pretty pleased with that. And as you can see, I've also put the flags on the back of the chariot, and that's where they go. And there's actually, I didn't notice until I looked at a picture, and then I was like, oh, that's where it goes. There's actually little divots, little holes into which the bottom of the flagpole actually sticks. So these will now go to be primed and painted. I'll be using the same colour scheme, but obviously tarting it up a bit because this is the King, but these will go and be primed and painted now, and then I'll come back when I've finished doing that, and I'm about to do the basing, which I'm quite excited about. It's got some really cool ideas, particularly for the base on the chariots. So yeah, that was a nice little session of gluing. Didn't take too long. They went together very nicely. What we have here is the present I got from my Secret Santa for the GBHL, and I was blown away when I received it. I've really enjoyed the chocolate that I received. Rosie's been enjoying the chocolate coins, and I've eaten the rest of it and had a great time munching on that, so it was very good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look at assembling the Spider Queen, and we have her broodlings as well. So as per usual, what I need to do is I need to wash these. So that's going to be going into hot soapy water, give them a wash, and then once they've been washed, then we'll look at how I'm going to actually glue them together, and then tidy them up, and then I will show you how I'm going to paint them, which I'm not totally sure yet. But what I am going to do, he included this little packet of flock, and he also included Bilbo, which is really awesome. So I'm going to paint and base everything all roughly similar, so that's going to be a little project I'm going to get on with as well. So yeah, I'll get this cleaned up and then bring you back when it comes to the gluing and show you how I'll go about doing that. But yeah, pretty cool, pretty excited to get stuck into this, and I might even try and get some of my other spiders that I've got and get a little bit of an arachnid force going. Sorry if anyone of you watching have got arachnophobia. I will attempt to remember to warn before I do any filming of that kind. I've glued the swarms onto their bases. I came with five of these 40mm bases, which is odd because I only needed 3, but that's not a bad thing. And I've also glued Bilbo onto his base. I've actually glued him slightly high, which I don't normally do, but on this one I think I want to, so I just need to make sure I don't knock that, because he's not actually foot flat on the base. That means I can do some interesting basing with him. And what I'm now looking at doing is the Spider Queen. So I've been looking at pictures again, because that's the best way to see how it's supposed to be. And how it's supposed to be is actually a little bit dull, I think, and I might change it up. So how it's supposed to be is this should go, I believe, I've got it all wrong now that I'm filming. I've been playing with this loads. This should go like that, and this should go in like that, even, and she will sit all fours, so flat on what have you. However, I think I want her rearing up and looking quite a lot more aggressive. So one thing I could do is, and I'd need to get my green stuff out and what have you. One thing I could do is rotate her front legs slightly, so she could be sitting on like this with obviously something supporting her or whatever, making her look quite aggressive. Or I could even swap it around, so I use the wider legs at the front, and they give a really nice aggressive pose, as you can see, and then the narrower legs at the back would also mean that she gives a nice pouncing pose that looks quite aggressive. So I think I'm going to go for that one, swapping the legs around, so putting the wider stance at the front, and that giving that kind of, making it look like she's jumping. That's my current idea, but I think I'm going to let that settle in my mind for a little bit, so that I definitely get it right, because once it's super glued you can't change it. And that's the plan. So I'll probably just go ahead and glue that, and then I'll need to do a little bit of green stuffing, but not very much, just on the underside and in these little gaps here, because obviously what I'm doing is not quite what it's designed for, so just a tiny bit of green stuff or milliput or whatever to go in there. And then we'll get to priming and painting, but the most important part for this is going to be the base. If I do her like this, then I'll probably have to stick her to something to paint her, because I'm not going to put her on a base yet. The others can just be painted up right now like that. So yeah, and I'll probably show you a little bit of the process, because I think it's going to be quite an interesting one. I don't think this is going to be a very hard paint job. It's more about getting the pose right for me. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of extra texture around the edges of this base, which is the broodlings, the spider's babies, Spider Queen's babies. So I've got my scenic glue here, which actually probably needs a little bit of a shake. So what I'm going to do is put a little bit of glue on, and then I've got my sand, and I can scatter sand over it. And you can see we're just getting a little bit more texture onto the base, so I need to do that on all these little gaps. And then when that's dried, then I'll paint it all together, the additional sand as well, alongside at the same time and with the same technique as the rest of the base. I think that's going to be the easiest way to do this. So it's a bit of a faff, but I want it to look really nice, so I just clean off the little bits of overspill there. So yeah, so I'll do that on all of these, all the bases, all 3. Oops, that dripped. And then let that dry overnight, and then I can come to priming it tomorrow. There we are. Get that done, and I'll bring you back for the next step shortly. So I've been thinking a little bit about this diorama with Girl Rides Bear, and I've worked out how I'm going to do it. So what you can see here is I've got an old offcut of some expanded polystyrene, and while it's not going to sit exactly that far forwards, I've clamped it in place so that I can mark out where to trim it, because I want it to be the full width of this piece of wood. I'll probably mount it a little bit further back. If we have a look, Bear, Girl and Bear will fit nicely here, so I can see where I can probably push it a little bit further back up the handle and maybe do some carving around. But what I'm going to have is, as I've said, I'm going to have the stream coming down, and my idea is I'm going to try out my UV resin, which I've not used before. So I've got this UV resin which I'm going to make use of, because I'm going to do a waterfall and then have the stream coming down and actually just have the stream running over the wood. I think that'd be really, really cool. So I might route out a little bit of the wood and have the actual resin going on the going into the wood. So the scenery and the terrain blends with the wooden surround, which is what I'm doing on all of these builds. So a lot of talking there. What I'm going to do now is cut this. So I'm going to mark where I want to cut using a marker, and to be honest I can probably cut a little bit in border of that. That's probably very much the outside of where I want to cut. So with that marked, I can use masking tape to make sure that my hot wire cutter stays straight. So as I say, we can probably be quite a little bit less panicky about actually going along that, but I do need to make sure that my tape goes in. Oh, that'll flex to the other side. There we are. So what I'll do is I will take that to my hot wire cutter and trim down those two lines there, and then that can be glued in place. Like I say, I might even shape it a little bit more, but that can be glued in place on there. When that's set, then I'll be able to potentially, I might do another level. I'm not sure how high I want it. I kind of don't want it to go too high because it'll be quite bulky to display. But then the go riding bear can sit on here, a stream can meander in, go over a waterfall, a little bit of terrain at the bottom, a little bit of scenery at the bottom here, and then the stream can go off the corner over the wood. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'll go and do the cutting now, get that glued in place. I'll probably glue it down either using the white fixed glue, the super strong glue, or PVA, one of the two, because this stuff wood does glue together nicely with PVA. And when that's all done, then I'll bring you back for the next step, which is going to be actually shaping this and working out exactly how the waterfall is going to go. The other thing I've got is I was setting a fire the other day, and I've pulled out a load of bark. This is my preferred method for making cliffs. I'm not sure whether I'll actually use them or not, but I've got a bunch of bark which I can potentially use to glue to the front here to make rocks. Now the other way of doing it, which I might end up doing if this doesn't look right, is using Luke's modelling compound, but we'll come to that. First things first, let's get these cut, get it glued down, get this shape right, and then we'll do the next steps. If any of you were then shouting at the screen saying, "Beard, you've got your masking tape in the wrong place," of course I had. So I fixed it, I caught it in time. The masking tape needs to be protecting the bit you want to keep, and it wasn't. So just make sure that you don't make that stupid mistake, or if you do, make sure that you catch it in time like I did. So I'll go and cut the other side now. Finally, towards the end of January, and I've got until the end of February to build this, and my mum arrived for 3 weeks on Monday, so I'm going to really be pushing it. These two kits are arrived, and this is the core of my build for the TCU Challenge. Now the TCU Challenge, the theme is New Beginnings, and what I'm doing is, there is currently, I think it might have even arrived, but when this was announced, there was a B-52H Stratofortress being trucked across America to begin a new life as a test bed for new systems. And I saw this news story and I went, I want to build that diorama. And I will flick some pictures up on the screen if I remember to, hopefully I will, of some of the inspirational pictures that I've got, some of the ideas that have inspired me from the Twitter feed and from the news story, which I'll also attempt to remember to link in the description below, because it's really interesting to read, so go and check it out after you finish watching this video, of course. Quinn from Quinian's Budget Crafts told me that the truck towing is a Peterbilt 359, and I believed him implicitly, so I have managed to find one of these. Now this is, I haven't even looked in this, This is a very old kit, as you can see. Look at how old it is, and I'm actually quite. I feel a bit kind of odd making such a beautiful kit, but kits are designed to be made, aren't they? They're not designed to be looked at and not used. So I have my work cut out. I need to assemble and paint this, which is going to be the easier part. Looks like that's not going to be all that difficult, touch wood. But the big thing that I'm going to need to do, and this is also makes me feel a bit odd, is I've got the B-52 to make. Now, still sealed, haven't even opened it. All I actually need, and I feel really odd, all I actually need for this is the fuselage, because the wings went to other places and the engines went to other places. So I'm going to have to just focus on the build, but I'm not going to throw anything away, obviously, and I will end up with some awesome spares out of this build, which I'll be able to use on some other stuff, I'm sure. So the idea is that the fuselage of the Stratofortress is on a trailer. Now, I found some 3D printable trailers that I might be able to use, but I'm going to have to basically scratch build a lot of that. That's going to be the hardest part, not least building this beautiful model. I might actually end up buying another one and making a real version, because, yeah, again, I feel a bit odd not making it fully. But the length of this is 66.4 centimetres. So that's just the length of the fuselage. So it's going to have a 60 centimetre long trailer being pulled by that truck. And that tells you just what an amazing thing this actually is. So I'm going to get these cleaned up, start assembling. I'm going to try and drop in as much as I can on the video to show how I'm going, but I'm going to focus more, as per usual, on the diorama side, on the actual building side. So getting this done and getting the truck done are just small elements for the diorama, though they are going to take me at least a week before I can even start thinking about it. And I'll also share as I go along how I do the 3D printing and the scratch building for the trailer. I've bit off a huge amount here. This is a big challenge, and I'm looking at this thinking, I don't know if I'm even going to get it done in time, but you don't know if you don't try, so I'm going to give it a go, and I'll get it as close as I can before the end of the month, and it should look amazing, because yeah, I'm pretty excited for building the actual diorama of it going. I think I'm going to do the one going over the bridge with the cavern and all the trees. So yeah, we shall see. I have ordered about 300 trees as well, which are on their way, not just for this, for the model railway, but they're also going to be useful for this. So I've got about 300 cheap trees to do, which will wood that ravine. But anyway, a lot of talking again, but this is the start of it. Let's get going. I'm very late starting this. It's already a month's past. A lot of people have already got a long way, and I've got a huge challenge in front of me. I suppose that was kind of inevitable. I've opened up this kit, and it's beautiful, it's glorious. It's just so wonderful that I just cannot bring myself to, well, initially, and we'll find out if I'm going to or not, but yeah, it hurts me to think about basically building a wreck out of it. So printer's going, don't know if you can hear in the background. I found myself a B-52 file. I've just split it in bits and hollowed it. It's going to be two print plates on my Saturn. So one's running now, I'm going to run overnight. Hopefully it works. And if that works, then I can put this glorious, beautiful girl back in a box and build her properly at some point. Having said that, I have made some really good progress actually. So I've assembled and primed the truck. So there we are. I'm really pleased. That was something that I managed to get done in my 22 minutes. Took more than 22 minutes, but that's what I spent my time doing it. So tomorrow I can paint that. Yeah, that's a really good start. The other thing is now that I actually have the kit, and I know the exact length of the fuselage, I can both start to design and print the trailer, which is going to be another thing, and I might even use my 2 Pro for that. And also I'm going to be able to start actually laying out the terrain, so I'll make a start on that tomorrow. I feel under a bit of pressure on this, but I feel excited pressure, not negative pressure, which is cool. So yes, I'm gonna crack on. I'll bring you along for the ride, obviously. But fingers crossed that print works, and I can actually do something real with this. Actually, make a build this properly. So we shall see. Well, plate 1 printed out last night. This has not been cured. It's been washed in alcohol and also in hot water. But what I wanted to do is just show you that it's worked. So thankfully that nice kit, hopefully if the second plate works, which is printing now, that nice kit can be saved. But what I'm having to do, and I'm doing this before I'm curing, is I don't want the I don't want the undercarriage down, and I don't want to have the wings. It's actually going to be cut out like this under the wings, which is going to be interesting. So what I thought I'd do is, before I cure, I would do as much of this surgery as I possibly can, because once it's cured it'll be hard. So I figured it'd be easier for me to break these off, and as you can see it is being easier for me to break these off, though I have actually just snapped that bit of the I might get some snips, that bit of the fuselage. But yeah, so I'm going to carve these bits off, clean it up, and then when it's cured I can come along and remodel where I need to with sculpting stuff. So just a little bit of probably milliput I'll use, I'm not sure. So yeah, so I'm just going to clean these up, but the good thing is this has worked, and it's going to look good. I think it's going to stick together nicely, and we're going to end up with a nice result. So yeah, I'll get this cleaned up, finish the other print, and then bring you along for the next step when I get to it, which will be putting this together. Because I've printed this, it's not a model that I'm putting together. I will bring you along for some of that, but not all of it, like I've said. But now this is actually feels a little bit more like crafting, even though it's 3D printed, because I'm going to have to do some sculpting. But I'm very pleased it's worked out as well as it has. As I say, now just to kind of cut off these edges. When I start sawing, I will put a mask on. When you're just clipping like this, you don't need to, obviously, but do pay attention and take precautions for your health. Resin is not a nice stuff, even though this is mostly cured. It's still not nice, you don't want to be breathing it in. Well, that was hard work, but successful. So I'm going to keep quite a lot of it. This is the piece that I wanted to keep, where the cutout for the wings is going to go, and actually the mesh inside is going to be pretty cool for what I need to do anyway. The waste stuff, so the bit I cut off, I'm going to keep that because I can think of use for that, so that can go in my bits box. And I'm also going to keep the wheels, because they're also going to be maybe useful for something, so I'm not going to throw those away. So it's just the little shards and the dust that have gone in the bin, so that's cool. So what I'm going to do now is cure that and put that into my curing machine, and then glue it together and start to assemble this awesome plane. As I said, the second plate is printing now. It's going to take about 8 hours or so, and that won't have as much cutting, but it will have some cutting, because I need to take some of the roots of the tailplane off, which I had to cut off in the Windows tool. I'm not very good at editing 3D files. If I was, then I wouldn't be cutting through resin like this. I would have done all the changes on the computer, but I've no idea how to do it, and such a rush now that I just thought, do the way you know, but maybe I'll learn one day. Anyway, very pleased about that. Chuck that in the curing machine, and then let's crack on. In the next instalment of Beard Keeps Making Stupid Mistakes, here's Smaug's head. Very shiny. I've done this before on a previous build, the Snake Temple, which is one of my earlier ones. I used a spray can. Now, I don't use aerosols very often, as you know, and I used a spray can which was enamel paint, and I've done it again. So what I'm going to do to try and save this, first attempt to try and save this, but before I have to print it again, which will really annoy me, is use the Liquitex acrylic medium varnish, matte varnish, to paint over the entirety of the model in a thin coat, and hope that that will give me some bite, because what I've found is nothing will stick to this enamel. None of my paints will actually adhere to it, so it's going to be a real pain in the backside to do all the other colours. Not that there's actually all that much to do, it's more shades and washes, but they need tooth, they need something to stick to. So I'm going to give it a go. It's going to take 2 applications because of how I need to hold the model. As you can see, I can't really do down here because I need to hold it. But I'm going to paint on this acrylic medium over the whole of it and see if when that's dry I can actually finish off painting this model. I'm really annoyed at myself. But you live and learn, or sometimes you learn. I didn't learn in this case. But I'll get the rest of it done, and then I'll return when it's when I know whether it's worked or not, and I'll show you what the results are. So as promised, I'm going to show you how I go about painting and getting that result on the chair. So it's quite a simple process, and I'm not going to film it all, mainly because I'm in my 22 minutes right now, and I'm really enjoying listening to the music I'm listening to. And I've stopped it so I can talk to you guys. Anyway, this is Vallejo wood, Model Air wood. And what I'm going to do, and it's going to probably take more than one evening to do this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put at least 1, if not 2 coats of this all over everything. So you can see I'm not having to be very accurate, just slapping it on with an old brush. I just want to get the base coats down. But you want it to be relatively good coverage. You want it to be a good coverage, which is why sometimes I have to do 2 coats. So yeah, Vallejo wood is your first painting colour for painting wood. Funny that, isn't it? That I paint wood with a wood colour. Yeah, so I'm going to stop filming now, keep cracking on with this. I've got 3 of these to paint as well, so this is going to take me probably, this coat will probably take me 15 minutes total for all of them. You can see that it's primed, and it's been primed with grey. I like to prime grey now. I used to prime black all the time, but yeah, this is done on top of the grey primer. And I'm not too worried, like I say, this will be a complete coverage, but I'm not too worried if there's brush marks or imperfections, because wood is not smooth, and this is the effect I'm going for. So I'm not trying to apply it really smoothly, just want to get a good coverage of the colour. Anyway, there we are. Get that finished, and the other 2 done, which are over here. There's one. There's another. So I'll get those done, and then when I come to the next stage, which is actually, funnily enough, the final stage, I will show you what I do. So that clamping idea worked really well. The second 2 parts have just finished curing, and I've just glued them together now and clamped as well, so they can they'll be ready for working with later, and then I'll clamp the whole lot together. But on this part, there's a couple of things I actually need to do. First thing is, you can see there's quite a gap here, so I'm going to need to fill that with some milliput or something like that. The second thing is, I actually have cut straight here, and what I need is kind of a shape like this. So where it actually goes forwards in where the wing is. So it kind of has that wing shape, and it has a little bit of an overhang. So what I'm going to try to do is get some XPS, glue some XPS onto here using the super strong glue, and then come along with a hot wire cutter and mask it off with cardboard, make sure that's really firm, and then come along and cut the shape in and shape it out so that it looks right, because it doesn't look right at the moment. Once I've glued the back on, I'll have to do the same thing at this end, because this will also need to be a little bit different. However, most everything else is looking superb, and I'm very pleased with it. Very pleased indeed, actually. It's turned out far better than I expected. Now, the actual truck, which is going to be doing the towing, some of it's down in the painting station being painted, and this has finished being primed now. So that's the way it goes, actually. No, sorry, that's the way it goes. That's the size of the truck compared to the plane, which is about right. I'm going to need to print out one more piece for this. A load of wheels I'm going to need to print, and also the bogie, which goes under here. And then I'm going to scratch build the actual trailer. Now, the actual trailer only goes about this long. The tail of the plane is hanging in midair, which is pretty incredible. But the really cool thing about having this all together is I'm going to be able to start to sketch out on my board and start to do the terrain, which is going to take some time. And I've had an awesome idea. This is obviously a diorama. That's all this is going to be. However, I think that if I do this well and do this nicely, I might eventually build it into my main model railway. And that would be a really cool little bit of detail, a little bit of interest, high up, tucked away from the actual model railway as scenery in the mountain, which I want to plan. We'll have the B-52 being towed across America. Anyway, that's for the future, not for now. The two other parts are drying over there. I'm going to get some milliput, do this, and then I'll bring you along when I come to do the actual XPS, but that's an explanation of the next steps. And I'm painting up the truck as well, so that will just be done, and that will just appear in this video. I'm not going to do anything more than telling you about the truck. It was a very easy kit to put together. Really recommended, actually. Really, really nice looking kit, and went together very quickly. So yeah, milliput time, and then I'll bring you back for the attempt at resculpting back on some more of the fuselage. So some good news. That worked, I think. I can see some parts where I missed. I don't know whether this is going to actually show up really well. Actually, it does show up a bit on the camera. Just here you can see a bit that I missed. It's really shiny still. The rest of it is matted down, and it feels like it's going to take paint much better than the enamel paint. So I seem to have saved my mistake, which is a relief because I don't want to have to print that out again. So I'm going to carry on with this. Got to paint the eyes, obviously. Going to put some dark washes onto the horns. It actually doesn't need very much. It just needs to be dulled down a bit, and maybe some browns and some blacks, and some greys, and some browny reds, and that should be done. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about the tongue and the teeth. I'm probably going to have fire coming out anyway. We're going to have smoke and fire, so I might not see that very much. But that's cool. So with that done, I really need to print the other half of the of this furnace, which I've still only printed the top, so I might have to try and set that going. The concern I've got is that it's going to take a huge quantity of resin, and I'm probably going to need to be watching it and top it up, so timing when I started is proving difficult. I also think actually this is too small, but yeah, I mean it should be about twice the size it is, I think. If you look at it next to Smaug's head, it's just too small. They're huge. So that's the other thing. I'm umming and ahhing about actually splitting it again and printing it all again, or maybe even waiting for my Prusa to be up and running, but then I'm going to run out of time. So having said that, what I'm going to do is start working on the actual board, finish painting up Smaug's head, and then start working on the broken bars and that part of it. So at least I can start that at the base. So that's what I'll do next. I won't do the painting on camera, I'll just bring it finished and tell you what I've done. So the next thing I'm going to do is start looking at how I'm going to do the bars and start to build up the terrain on the board. Okay, against all the odds, I think this blue foam idea is actually going to work. So what I've got is two of the thin blue foams. I think they're a centimetre or something like that, maybe thick. And I've cut them so that they're roughly the right length for the gap. So that's about the gap I can see on the picture. And interestingly enough, I think actually it's painting that does. I can paint on the shape, so I don't have to do any carving underneath. And what I'm doing is very, very carefully, and I'll try and do this on camera. It's very, very difficult to get on camera, but very, very carefully, I'm carving along the contour that I can see going down the plane. So it's not very easy to do, but I think it's doable. I think it will work quite well. So I've just started playing with this, as you can see. I've not glued it in place. And it working as well as it is, what I'm going to do now, before I do any more, is I'm going to use PVA to glue these two together, because I'll be able to continue cutting through those. I'll leave those weighted down and let them properly dry overnight. And then once that's dry, then I will come along and I will stick them in place in here. And then once that's stuck in place, I will then continue carving. So that's my idea, and I think it's going to work, which is fantastic. The other thing is, as part of this clip, it's all together. So I also have some milli putting to do here. So glue these two together. Then when that's completely dry, glue it to the fuselage, or actually probably glue it straight to the fuselage. And then when everything's all dry and completely sealed together, then I can come along, carve out the shape of the fuselage and return that section. And we're rocking and rolling. Very, very exciting. I wasn't expecting to do this clip. I will now get to the actual layout of the board, of the display piece. So we're going to be shaky cam for a minute while I talk through my thoughts, and also you're going to see how messy my room is. So I'm just planning out the actual layout for the Smaug diorama, and I think I've worked out what I want to do, and I've changed my mind again, and I'm actually happier having changed my mind. So let me quickly swing round. I'm just watching on YouTube the scene, which is very dark, you can't really make it out, the scene in the films where Smaug burns and throws fire through the grating, that's the grating there on the left, and lights the forges. And I'm going to do the scene just here where he hasn't yet broken through and where he's burning fire. So if I start this clip from here, so you can see there's the, it's not really picking it up very well unfortunately, but there's the grating. And he comes along and he burns through, and they are hiding on the other side, and then it starts the forges. So that's the scene I'm going to do. So let's go back to my jobby over here. So what that's going to involve, actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the camera on the stand and then talk through how I'm going to do it. Alright, so what that's going to involve is I'm going to need to mount Smaug's head like this, which is going to work really, really nicely. As you can see, really nice with a load of fire coming through. So they're going to mount that there, and so that will mean that I'm going to need to have an upright here onto which to mount him, which is going to be quite sturdy because he is quite heavy. And then the back is going to be quite a rough wall, but there's kind of a square pattern of steps going up, or some kind of like a little bit more finished stone. So it's finished stone in a square pattern stepping up, and then rough stone above it. And then here I will have the lattice work that he's blown his fire through with a couple of pillars, and I have some Bilbo and company on its way. My mum has it. She's arriving on Monday, so I will be able to paint them up hiding behind each of the pillars. And then on this end of the board I will be able to have at least one of the and I think I am going to print the bottom of this just to see how it looks, and I'll be able to have one of the forges which can sit right on the other end of the board. So I think that's going to work really nicely, and I'm very, very pleased, because as it happens this was the original plan, but I thought I wouldn't be able to pull it off, so I was going to go for the bit where he actually smashes through the bars, but that's not really what I wanted to do, and now I'm going to do my best to do it. To do this. So yeah, so I'm going to now think about how I'm going to mount him. That's the biggest, most challenging part, is how I'm going to mount him, and it might actually have to be wood that I stick him to and paint black or something like that, which is a bit annoying, but I might have to do, I think I'm going to have to do wood and really like secure it strongly. And if I do wood and really secure it strongly, then I might just do a 90-degree wooden frame and have that so that it's got some strength across there as well, so it's not just a bit of wood stuck on here that could tilt, so it's actually a frame. So I might make a 90-degree frame that will go all around the back and all around the side, and then what I can do is I can stick my backdrops to that frame. So that's what I'm thinking at the moment, but there's going to be some thinking, there's going to be some planning, some mistakes, I'm sure. Once I've got a little bit more idea, and once I've maybe cut some wood, because that part makes a lot of sense to me, then I'll bring you along, show you how it's going, but I am going to now make sure to slice up correctly and attempt to print the bottom half of this furnace, or the forge, because I think I do need it. My painter bust a month has started off very well. I've finished one here, so this is January's bust, and I've primed up the second bust I'm going to paint, which is this one. Now both of these are from Printamancer. You can pick them up from his My Mini Factory store. They are absolutely awesome. They print out really, really lovely, and they paint up very, very well. I'm very, very pleased with how she came out. It was a lot of fun painting her, and I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into this chap as well, and I'm going to do this through the year, so one bust a month. If you want to join in, please do. It'd be great to have you along. I'm sharing these on Instagram under the hashtag Bust a Month, so pretty obvious, and yeah, just getting cracking on them and enjoying myself. If you can do bust every 2 months, doesn't matter. It's just about getting stuck in and painting. So yeah, so that's the first month done. Big tick. Let's see if I can manage to paint up that dude in the month of February. I probably should have picked a smaller one to paint for the shortest month of the year, huh? Couple of weeks time, it's going to be Rosie's birthday, and I printed out this Clockwork dragon, and I've decided I'm going to try and get it painted up in time as a little kind of surprise gift. I like to give her something I've made, not just bought, because there's thought gone into both obviously, but there's a lot of thought gone into this. So yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try and paint this up in time for her birthday in 2 weeks time, literally 2 weeks today. Wow. So yeah, so I've primed it, stuck it to a tongue depressor, as you can see, glued it to a and primed it up with grey, and I'm now going to get stuck into painting it. I will do relatively regular updates, but not a painting video on this, just talk through roughly what techniques I've used. But yeah, I really like the print. Can't remember where I got it from. I will if I find out, then I'll try and remember and put it into the link below. But yeah, just can't for the life of me remember where I got this from. I think it might even have been from the same guy as I got the gingerbread dragon from. That's Itches, I think it is the same guy, but I'm not totally sure. But anyway, Rosie will love this. I'm absolutely sure she will. Well, this print has just finished. I haven't checked, literally just finished. As I film this, it's actually just gone to the top. I've not checked to see whether it's worked or not yet. I can't see any obvious failures from here. This is the top half of the Erebor Forge, and if we zoom in, you can see just how long it's taken. It's taken over 10 hours. That's been running since last night, overnight, and yeah, it looks like it's got some success. I'll now clean it up and check. The other things on there is a couple of vehicles for my TCU challenge for this month, so a couple of pickup trucks that I printed out and just shared the plate. But yeah, that main of that is the Erebor Forge. Pretty pleased. Let's get it. Let's go and have a look at it and get it cleaned up and see how well it looks. Well, there we are. Like I say, it was quite a productive week. I actually got quite a lot done, and it felt good. It was really nice. It's been a couple of weeks this year so far where I felt like I haven't done much, but I've got a lot done. This week I felt like I got a lot done, and I did. So there we are, a little bit of a difference. So on Monday, my mum comes to visit. Hobby time will necessarily be slightly limited, and as you can see from this video, I have a lot on. So I don't expect the vlog next Sunday to be shorter necessarily, but I do expect to feel a bit more under pressure. So let's see how I feel next Sunday. You'll see that from the intro and the outro next week. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you've got this far, massive appreciations. Really do appreciate you watching, and do leave me a comment below. I do reply to them all. And as always, and I mean it, please do stay healthy, stay safe, and stay well.